let's do this. So tonight we are gonna try out something different. Like this is something I wanna start a script, like a project from scratch with you guys, which are gonna be watching. The main idea today is to make a simple calculator. Um, so the way I envision it is just a very basic calculator, like the same you would use on a cell phone, like that. But um, we are gonna do that in a terminal UI. So that's the thing, and we are going to use, of course, FatScript to do it because this channel is about building new stuff with FatScript. So just for us to have an idea of what we want here, we actually want it um, to look somewhat like a calculator. I'm just gonna draw something here for us to have an idea of what it could look like. I'm just gonna say 800 by 500 because I want it to be actually 600 by 800 because I want it to be a tall reference. And yeah, that's too bright. Let's put it in black. And then imagine we have here this space where the numbers go on the top. Then we have like all these digit buttons here. Yeah, that's not very straight, not very nicely drawn, but just so we know, this is usually how a calculator looks like, just roughly. And here we would probably have the operations like plus, minus, and they're not really straight, aren't they? Yeah, that one is really bad. So like here, multiply and divide. Right, and then here we have something probably like the dot, and here we have the 0, and here we have like a clear, restart, something like that. Just the basic 4 operations, dot, and what I want to do is I want these keys, if I type them on the keyboard, they should highlight themselves like quickly, and then it can go away. And I want the information to be shown here on the top, and then when I hit enter, or maybe we can just put equal here and not have a clear, you just press ESC or some other key and it restarts the operation. I don't know, we will see. It's not a perfect design, that's not the goal here. The goal here is actually to learn how to build something like that on our terminal UI. Right, so for that, the first thing I wanted to show you is one project that I worked on called FatForm. So FatForm is basically, if you will, it's a way to create like components, visual components for the terminal. It's still like a project which I'm every now and then I think about it and I think that I could improve on it. But today we're gonna do together this project, so that the idea is just like use it as it comes and try to make something out of it. So basically, for installing this project, so to leverage FatForm, you need the FatScript interpreter. Of course, I already have that. You need then you can then just clone it. You can probably also use it. I think you can use it with Chef also. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe you can't. Well, let's see. So there is another project which is Chef, Chef, FatScript Chef. I think by the name of that project I can just get this one. So Chef is the kind of package manager for FatScript. It's still very, very like starting. There may be flaws. It's not perfect, but it's a start. It's a thing that may help you to just get other projects into one project. So one thing I'm going to do right now is I'm gonna create a new folder here for our calculator. Calculator. And then cd calculator. And then in this project, what I want to do is use the Chef utility. And every time when you start a new project, you have actually to give Chef the sources. It's unlike like npm or any other of these tools that simply just, you know, they come already set up for some specific repository. With this tool, actually, you have to tell it, hey, use this reference. This also allows anyone to create other repositories for FatScript in a non-centralized way. So I don't have to tell where the FatScript projects live. You can just add more and you know, like tell about them. But if you also create a project that you would like to distribute through the fatscript.org, then you can also submit a ticket and we can see if it's possible to be added here. So basically, because of that, Chef needs you to use this command, which is menu add and then fatscript.org. It will get that menu for you. And now I can use Chef what catalog, and it will say everything that I have there. And I do have like fat form, so okay, I can use that. So Chef include, and then you use fat form. Okay, and then what the last command you need is Chef restock, and then this will trigger the download of this package. So let's now check if we have this. I'm gonna use Visual Studio Code. I actually envy those who work with Vim, for example, although I do use a lot of things for console here. I do use Visual Studio Code for doing this kind of videos and showing up how it works. Anyway, that was kind of complete side topic. So going back, when I used Chef, it created the database, which basically is a JSON that has all the catalog. We also have here the ingredients, which it keeps like some sort of tracking of what are the items that your project requires. It already created a git ignore where it puts the stock in a git ignore. That means that like on npm modules, it won't get added to your repository if you add this to a repository. And it did create also a log file with a version. I'm not really 100% sure if this will work for all kinds of items that you can add. Some of them use file, not Git repositories. So for Git repositories, this should work. For others, maybe it won't. But anyway, that's what we need to know for now. And one interesting thing is that we have already here 2 samples for the FatForm project. So let's look at those. So this first sample, here on README, I actually say something about those samples. Sample form. So the sample one is a text input and a checkbox. And the sample 2 is buttons and navigation. This looks more like what we need, but let's have a quick look at those. So the first one, okay, so it has some text box at the top. If I press tab, if I remember correctly, you go to this checkbox, and if you press tab again, it goes back to that one, and I can edit more. Enter also toggles them. Tab toggles, yeah, goes back and up and forward. So there's some basic navigation here, but nothing out of the extraordinary. And I have a sample 2, which basically is a menu, new game, high scores, exit game. This looks a little bit more with what we want to do, which is buttons on the screen. Okay, right, I exit the game. So I'm going to copy this sample 2 as an entire thing into my calculator file. I'm going to create a new FatScript file here, calculator.fat, and I have just copy pasted the whole sample code here, and we're going to start from it and we're going to start changing. So let's just get through the basics here, which is we do have this calculator fat form library, which I think there is a must. You need to import it at fat form. I'm almost sure. That's like a one restriction that fat form imposes, because it then reuses that name and does some stuff under the hood for that. So I'm not going to change where we import it, but I need to change where from we bring it. So it's located at stock dot fatform dot lib. Right, so there's a lib here. Yeah, lib.fat. So okay, so it's going to import stock.fatform.lib into fatform. That's a very important part of how to do it. And then the other things are just regular FatScript imports. Even we could just make it even simpler and just do standard imports. Right, so we just import all the standard libraries from FatScript here, and then as follows, we just add the fatform library. So basically here we have a theme which is blur color and active color. We are using the blur color as blue. So blur means not selected button, and this is like active button. Yeah, don't need to. I think we might need another one here, which is like for our numbers, we also want to show the numbers like the result panel in some other kind of color. So I'm just gonna put here like display color, and the display is gonna be curses dot make pair color dot cyan, whatever. And then here we have all those themed buttons. More about this in a second. We're gonna come back to this and create our calculator design here. And here we have also this menu where we get all the possible item IDs so that we can navigate through them. Now, we probably are not gonna do any of this navigation right now, so you can study this code later on, but we will need to handle the change. You will have to have some sort of, when you click a button, you need to make it light up, like get active, and then after a while, after a few seconds, it's not gonna be active anymore. So to do that, we're probably gonna set the focus on it and then remove the focus after a few seconds. Okay, so I think we will not need any of this, and we will know our buttons by name. Okay, so that's a theme button which is already defined, which I can just reuse. So it's gonna be blur color when it's not selected and active color when it's focused. So basically that's how we want to use it. So I'm not going to change anything here. And then here we have our menu, which renders as a box. So just let's see. Okay, so the menu renders as a box, but this box doesn't have any, it's not drawn as we see it. There's no lines on it. I think there is a reason why this is happening. So one thing we can do is just go into FatForm and look into the core components. So box, it does take a color, but if it doesn't take a color, it's invisible. So therefore, if we go back to the calculator and set here like color equals, let's just use the blur color, it will also show the box which we were previously not seeing. Not really. Okay, so maybe I'm missing something. Color, it's a number, color pair, or it is invisible. All right, so I think it must use theme, of course, that's why. So there is no, so this is null, so color was null, so nothing was shown, that's why. Now let's see. Okay, so it's the same kind of width of this whole thing. I'm gonna make it a little bit, I think we need to change a few things here. So these are our positions inside referenced by the position of this one. So it's using 0, 0. Like when you consider these positions in a terminal, it's all like the top left is 0, 0, and the bottom right is your maximum amount, is your maximum size. So to be able to draw it at the top, I'm going to start here from 0, 0. And then if you see these buttons, they start all at 0. I'm going to move them a little bit, slightly, to the right. So I'm going to move them to 2, 2, 2. And here I'm going to also start like 1, 4, and then 7, just so we can see what's going on. And the width, I think it's also using the width of the menu box. So I probably need to also tell it to use a different width here. Width equals, I don't know, 6. Maybe it won't fit the text, but that's a different problem. We just want to see how this looks like. Okay. All right, that's a little bit better. So what happened here? The position now where it starts drawing this thing is at 0, 0. It has a height of 10, it has a width of 20, and then we have all these items which are now much smaller. But also we won't be needing it like new game, high score, and all of that. We're just gonna place 1, 2, actually it wouldn't be 2 because 2 would be here, so this would be actually 4, and this would be possibly 7. Yeah, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So let's just see if this already improves something. Okay. It does have an arrow because this is the one that is selected. I think this is a default behavior of button, so you can't really remove the arrow. What we can do is we can set the width to 4, and then I think we won't have all that space around, and it would actually not show that little thing. Now also another thing is we don't want it being focused as the first button. We actually don't want any focus at all. So the IDs also could just be the numbers, couldn't they? So 1, 2, and 1, 4, and 7. Okay, that's, and I have commented out the one for setting the focus, this line which was setting the focus to 1. So now we won't have it setting any focus at all. So we start again. Now nothing is focused. Right, we have a rough idea of how this could look like. I think I need to make it a little bit larger, like in all senses, like a bit taller, a little bit wider, and then place all the buttons in the right places. So let's do this first. So for the width, we probably need a little bit more than that. Let's start with the first line. So this would be our first line here for 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm creating buttons for 1, 2, 3, and the positions I need to change. So this position is X, Y. So all of them we want to be at the same Y. For now it's 1, but that's actually not right. We will have to change this later. But we want them to be one next to the other. So I'm just guessing. I'm going to put 6 here and add more 4, so this would be 10. I'm not sure this is going to work. Maybe it's going to be one over the other. Maybe I need to put more space. Yeah, looks like that. So I'm going to add here one more, like 7, and then 2 more, like 12. Let's see about that. Okay, that looks a little bit better for a calculator. We still need one more button here at the side, which would be our plus button. So the label is also plus, and then it needs to be 5 more, so 17. Right? Is this right? Okay. Now the width is not enough, so we need to add a little bit more of width here. I would say maybe 24. Not sure. I'm just kind of guessing. I probably could do some maths to do this right. I'm just kind of guessing. So I'm going to put 23. I think this is good enough. And now we need to move those numbers a little bit down. So I'm going to start. Actually, we need one more child to this menu box object here, which the interesting thing with the box is it takes these positions and uses them regarding the outer component. So if I move this, for example, to the right, let's say 10, and I start it again, it moved the whole calculator to the right. So later on, we're gonna see how we can actually put it centered to the screen. That's also something we could do, like really center our calculator in the middle of the screen. Let's actually do that right now. So here you can, instead of just placing it at a random position, you could just use curses.getMax.x and then /2. So this is, and then we still need to like discount here. So this is exactly the middle of the screen, but we need to discount half of the size of this box. So this box has 23. I'm just going to discount like 11. Okay, so this should already place it in the middle of the screen. Right, cool. So when you start up your application, it's going to start in the middle of the screen regarding the X axis. And we could also do that regarding our Y axis. So same thing. I'm just going to place the maximum X, Y outside. So max equals curses get max, and then max X here and max Y. I still need to think a little bit about this because it's not just half, it's also considering the height. We don't yet have the height correctly. I'm gonna keep it at 0 for now. We're gonna come back to this and we can fix it later. So now let's close all of these, and we probably need to replicate the same idea for our other lines. So this was 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 plus. Then for this one we need, this was on line 4, right? So okay, so it starts, it's all with 4 here. 4 4 4 and 4. I'm placing them like all in the same line, and then here the number is going to be 4. I also need to change the ID. 4 4 4. I actually could have done something more clever here, but I actually did it something wrong. So I typed 4 for everybody, but actually we want different buttons, not all the same. And then here probably you would have plus, then minus. And I think this starts to look like a calculator. Something is not quite right. We still need the place to put our results, and maybe even yeah, let's start with that. Like I forgot completely to put that here, so I'm gonna add another box here. So this is our box for the result, and a box also has the same properties here. So I'm just gonna copy those properties in. It needs a position, where the position is just gonna be 1 1, I think, right? It starts where this one, or maybe 2 1, where this one is currently set, and it has the same width, maybe -2, and the height of it is just like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 2. I'm gonna put 3. If I put 3, it means that everybody below it needs to move 3 down. So this is gonna be 4 4 and 4 and 4, and this is all gonna move also 3 down. So 7 7 7 and 7, and 2 more to go. Okay. Yeah, a lot of mousing over here. Okay. Let's look at how this is starting to look. Okay, no argument for children. Why? Oh, okay, I can just say that we have children, which is for now nothing, but we will have to add here our text, our label, which will display the result. Also, one thing to mention is that we did create a display color. We can already use that display color here for our box. So it gets a display color. Okay, we got an error here. I'm not sure what's going on. Scope item to list box at. It's somehow not happy about adding this. List. list of box. So children. Oh, it's not happy because this one is team button and then here's a box. I get it. So it's not happy because we are adding to the list a box and a theme button. That's going to be a little bit more complicated to fix, and I think this might need some clarification. So FatScript has one feature, which is if you have a list, let's say list equals, I'm going to put just some numbers here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then you want to add something to the list, you just say list plus equal, and you can append to it another list. So it could be just 4 or 4 or 5, it doesn't matter. You can add multiple items at a time, and the new list now, like list, is now composed from those other lists. This is no problem with it, but if you want to add here another item which is not a number, for example name, it's gonna complain likewise because it doesn't let you add items which are not of the same type. So adding text into item to list slash number, so it's saying this list you have is of type number. Now why are you trying to add a text to this? It doesn't work like that in FatScript. They need to respect the same type. So this is a clarification of what was the error we saw before. When I tried to execute this one, he said, hey, adding scope item to list box at aux, yeah, this won't work. So it's not happy about what I'm trying to do here. And I think I know why. Because the problem that we are having here is that the theme button actually escapes the root kind of component we were using there. So that's gonna be something I will have to think about at another moment, because this is gonna be complex to solve. What I'm going to do is something much simpler. I'm just gonna move this box out of the children, and I'm gonna use 2 boxes here. So one which is gonna be invisible, just to group these themed buttons, and another box which is, I'm just keep this box here, and I'm gonna add another box with the children which is like invisible. So here we have another box which will group all the other items, which actually will probably even help me because I was moving them around. I would probably not have needed to move them around. Anyway, this will be easier to fix even the shifting of the positions of those other items. So I'm just gonna copy this. I don't actually even need the height or the width. I probably need the position, but the position can just be 0, 0. All I need really for real here is the children. So I'm gonna just, I think that this is like a workaround because I created the theme button, which is a button. Otherwise, it would work because all the components inherit directly from components. So divider is a component, checkbox is a component, button is a component. If they all inherit from component, you can actually mix and match them. But because I created one thing which isn't really derived directly from component, it can't mix and match those. So that's one thing that I didn't notice before. I just noticed right now, but we are fixing it. So I'm gonna just move all these theme buttons into this box. I'm not sure if this is gonna work. I hope it works actually, but we're gonna see right now. Okay, so it did work more or less as how I expected it to work. Let me just close it and render it again. Okay, So it's kind of working. I need to move these a little bit down. The good news is now that they are grouped in that other box, I don't even need, I can just move them down here. Actually, I could just start with them at 0. So again, me editing this thing just for the sake of keeping it everything organized, and then at 3. And the next one would be at +3, 6, right? So for the 7, 8, 9 line, so this is 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, and here this is probably gonna be multiply. And then regarding the positions that I'm using here, this would be 6, 6, 6, and 6. So one thing you already probably noticed is that the way that FatForm works is all by direct positions. There is still no layouts. Like you can't really do any layout in here, like just put items and use flexible like CSS kind of things. You have to really determine in the screen where this is going to be positioned. You could come up with some maths to calculate those positions for you. Probably that would be cleverer. Depending on what you're doing, you could do that. It just would take a lot more time for us to do it here in this example. So I'm trying just to keep things as simple as I can. So let's see where we are at right now with this. Duplicated ID, okay. Component core calculator 11. Not really, that's probably not it. Call team button. Okay, so it's saying that 1 is duplicated. Why is it duplicated? So 7, 8, 9. And here we have 1, 2, 3. Here we have, okay. I see why. This is really duplicated. Okay, I just don't understand why it moved all up again. I know why, because I removed the padding that it had. So now I'll probably have to just move things a little bit around. For this box, I'm just gonna move it 3 down. Let's see if that helps. I think maybe it's 4. Oh, I didn't move it down, I moved in the other direction. 0, 4 maybe. Okay, maybe even 5. What about that? Okay, now it's looking better. I still need to fix the size of the display. The display is probably actually too big. So let's look at it. This is also this box here, which is the display. Let me just add a comment here, display. So I don't want it to be so small, so I'm just gonna put a height of 2. Maybe that will be enough. Yeah, that's probably good enough. I'm gonna bring this a little bit back up again. Now I need to fix the height of the outer box. I'm also changing the width here for the display box. I think I can still remove one more. We're getting there. Okay, so finally the height of the whole menu, which is actually a calculator. Calc form, I'm gonna name this. It's not a menu anymore. Well, we can just name it menu because this makes it easier, because all the bindings here down are regarding show menu, blah 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 menu. So I'm just gonna keep it like that for now. And here the height, I need to increase this. Let's put it 15. I'm just kind of trying to guess here and not really. So we still need one more line there. So it's almost all right. Yeah, so just gonna add this line, one more line of buttons here, and we are almost done. So 7, 8, 9. Now we have like dot probably would be the thing. Then we have like 0, which we still hadn't added so far. Then we have equal, which we didn't add before. And then, yeah, divide symbol. I'm just going to use a simple slash here. Could be something else. Now, with regards to the height, I'm going to move them 3 down as well. So 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, everything on 9. Right, so this should pretty much give us the calculator. I still need to add a little bit of space down there for it to render nicely, but it's already starting to look like something, isn't it? Okay, that already looks almost like a calculator. I still need to put some number here, so let me add the label there. So label, basically, I'm just gonna say it needs to take the width of that same thing, and I can add a text if I want, and I can change the text later on. That's how I understand it. Okay, so let's get back to our calculator and just add here in a label. What are the props of the label? All of these. I definitely will need an ID. Well, let me just put it the other way. ID equals result, and then the position equals position 0, 0. So it's gonna start where this box starts. The text equals, I'm gonna have to think a little bit about this. Probably it needs to take its whole width to, I think it inherits this width, so I don't think to add in width here. So I hope it automatically uses the width of whatever the box has. We'll have to check, actually. I'm not sure. I think if I don't provide it, it uses this one. We'll see. And then for the color, we want to use also this display color, theme display color. I think also it will inherit this. So let's just see if it just inherits all the other props. For now, I'm just gonna put here some random text, then we fix it and make it better, right? Okay, no argument for width, so it's not happy about not having width. Okay, just let's add this width here. And does it complain of no arguments for color? Okay, so it doesn't inherit anything. It's not happy about anything that I'm missing. Okay, that kind of worked, but the text is not in the position that I wanted. So I'll create a little function to actually pretty print result. Okay, pretty print result. There's one more thing here. We need to position it properly, like 1, 1 and not 0, 0, maybe in 2, 1. Let's see if this helps. Like I need to move it a little bit down and into the center. Now I want the text to be placed at the end of the line and not at the beginning. Let's make this later. This is gonna take a little bit of effort. We can fix this later. So I want to now to be able to, when I press a button, I want to be able to capture those events. So because we have a lot of buttons there, something must be triggered by these events, right? So when the source means which event has been triggered, and the value means, so source means which button was triggered, and the value is what event was triggered. So because none of them is active, maybe that's a problem because we might not get any events. I'm just gonna see if we can get any events at all. Let's see. We have added this onChange to FatForm add listener, so it should trigger all the events into this loop here, into this function here. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna capture the events, log them, and exit. So I'm just gonna say curses and curses. So this exits that special mode, and then I'm just gonna say, do we have console? Yes, of course. Console.log source is source, and also for the value is value. Okay, so this is gonna print, and then we need to exit, because if it continues executing, it's gonna go back to the curses mode. So I'm just gonna exit this. Right, so if I press any keys, actually nothing is happening here. So I have a guess, nothing is being triggered. I'm gonna select any random button here. I'm gonna just select, I don't know, equal, maybe. How this is gonna look. Okay, now when I press A, it says, okay, the source is equal, the value is A. We probably will need always a button to be shown for something to be rendered, something to be shown as active. That's not quite how I expected it to work, but let's do it for now like that. I'm gonna start with the equal being the one signed, which whatever happens if, let's see, a calculator. So set focus next, get next, source. I can, you see, I can just set the focus on whatever is the direct one that I'm clicking. So this is probably gonna work if I do something like this. FatForm set focus on the source. Okay, so it doesn't matter all of that. I'm just comment this out. Actually, I'm probably not gonna need this, but this will allow us to see that we are kind of clicking those buttons, right? So if I press 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not working, right? Why is it not working? FatForm set focus next, and then for some reason it's not dating. All right, I'm not quite understanding. Okay, if I press 1, it exits saying the source is, oh, I see, right, of course. So we want to set the focus to the value, not to the source. The source we don't care too much for now. So if you press 3, source equals 3. Okay, let me comment this out. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we can move here, right? So the last key we pressed will keep bright dot equals. So it kind of remembers the last one we pressed minus. Yeah, all of them kind of work. Not exactly how we wanted, but or not exactly how I had imagined it. But this is also okay. It's fine. For our example, it will be fine. We could spend some more time to create like some phantom button and then colorize those items and do all that stuff. But I think we won't be having the time to do all of that right now. So I think I will have to keep it simple. And I think I'll have to be happy with what we have so far. So now we want to have like result value here, which starts with a 0. Let's put it on top here. And for now, what I'm going to do is result. We need also an update results, which this update result basically this is a function which takes in number okay, so it takes a number, and with that number what it is going to do is it's going to take that number and it's going to change the value inside the menu. So for that, FatForm offers us a way to get the component. So with this get component, we can actually do fatform.get component, and then we need to get the component which we call result. And with that one, what we want to do is the text equals our n2text. Here we could do some pretty print and any, like, for now I'm just gonna keep it very simple. So basically when we call update result, we just do this. Another thing we could do here is also set our external result to some value, but I'm actually gonna keep it elsewhere. I'm just gonna update it elsewhere. So this is just update display. All right, let's call it update display. So it will update our display with the new result. It will update the label. Okay, that kind of seems fair. So if I type a number, I'll have to think a little bit about this one, to be honest. I think this will have to happen all in that other logic that we have there. So I'm going to start here with 0. And I think that because of how this works is we have to kind of update the text directly. So if our value is a number, okay, that's a way to think about it. So if a value is a number, what are numbers? It's 0 or actually 0 is a special case. We need to think a little bit about that one. But if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, or 7, or 8, or 9, any of those, we will just add it to the text value of it into the result. So let's get the component here, which is the display, which is this thing, and then into the display what we will do is we will add to the display text plus equals whatever we already have there, which is our value, to text. Now I'm going to come back to the 0, but let's see if that works, meaning that when I type the numbers, it's just going to add more numbers to what I'm seeing there. Okay, so if I type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing is happening. Okay, that's not what I expected. Definitely not. Does the label have something like a set value? Not really. So it basically just takes the text and it should re-render that text. And text is mutable, so if we change the text, it should change the text. Something I'm missing. I know what I'm missing. The value is actually not a number, it's a text. So that's why it never reached this code. Now it should. Because the value is actually the ID of the button that we are clicking. So it will get one of these as a value and will come in here. So it didn't match because I was trying to match to a number, but it was actually a like value here is actually a text. That's why it didn't work. Now, excuse me for that, but now it should work. Right. The problem we have here is if I have a zero, that zero should go away, right? So I think even maybe I can add zero to the base case here, in the sense that it doesn't matter which number we have. The problem is that if the only number that we have on the text is zero, then we shouldn't add it. So if the text that we already have there is zero, like that, then display text equals the other value, that new value, which I don't need to convert to text, by the way, because it's already a text. Otherwise, yeah, just append whatever we have there. So now, why I'm trying to run it outside. Now, if I run it, if I try to add a number here, like it already types more like a, oh, something happened, which is it selected something that was not a number, and now we cannot come back. Now I know how to fix this. Is we can only move it to the next thing if we can handle it. So this fat form select focus whatever, we can only do this if we can handle it. So I'm gonna add it here for now, and we will have to add it to any other cases that we handle. And if it's not handled the case, then we cannot set it to another focus, because it means it's not a button of the buttons which we can handle, right? So we do have something like a temp result here, which I guess would be zero. So let's come back with the reset thing. Like, for example, if it's ask or C, which is kind of clear, so we're gonna clear the calculator. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna temp result minus equals temp result. So it's gonna go back to zero. Will this always work? I think so, because if you have 1, if you have 10, then minus 10, that's 0. If you have like minus 10 minus minus 10, then that's also 0. So yeah, that should, you know, zero it out. Whatever is we have on the temp result, this should work. And then we also need to do one more thing, which is set the display text back to 0. So let's see how that behaves. 1, 2, 3. If I press ask, it turned into 0. It didn't actually overwrite there, so I do have that problem where I need to actually print all the lines here. I cannot just print a few ones. So I think we're gonna go get back to the point where we do need to do that pretty print thing. Yeah, I think we definitely need that. So there is one way to capture the value that is there, and then to pretty print back to it. Capturing is easy. We can just use trim here. If that is equals 0, then this value, I think we're gonna have to keep it outside, to be honest. It's not so, there's like this temp result, and then there's like temp display. That's gonna be the easier solution for this. And then we have a pretty print, which we make all the math with our temp display, and then we just override it with our pretty print of whatever is in our temp display. Does that make sense? I think so. Yeah, so here, instead of using all these things, we just check for the temp display, and then we say temp display. We need here to inform root, temp display is this thing. And otherwise, the temp display, if you are using plus equal, that's one of those things with FatScript. So plus equal will update directly the value that we have here on the root. But if you just do temp display equals value, the attribution will actually create in the scope of this function a new variable, a new value called temp display. So that's why I need to use root here. If we want to be symmetric here, we can just use root temp display, root temp display, root temp display everywhere. Just to be clear, we are not using a variable that is within this scope, but it actually belongs elsewhere. That's one way of doing it, or you could just not put it here or not put it in any place, and just put it when you actually need to inform, yeah, I want to update that thing there. We could also use another thing, which is create an object like a global, but there's not much benefit to it. So I'm just going to use root here for now for the simplification. So I add this value to the root value. What happened? What happened now? Why did it close? Okay, we're back. So when we have here the temp display, which we're updating, we set the form, and we need to actually set this new value with the pretty print. So pretty print equals, it's just a function, really. We don't even need to pass any arguments. It already knows what it needs to do. Maybe we can pass in the display, because this would make it easier for us not to have to get the component. Or do we actually need the display? Maybe we don't need it, so we can just get the display here directly. Fatform get component result, yeah, that makes sense. So we don't need to pass in display. And then with that, we just say display.text equals our temp display, which we need to overlay on a blank thing, like a blank space, repeat. I don't know, maybe 17 will be enough, 16. I don't know how long it is. And one thing we do know is we want to align it to the right. So that was one thing we had said right at the beginning, that we wanted it to be aligned right. So let me place this before everything, and then I'm gonna call this function as we try to pretty print the result as well. So when we start up, actually, we will have to pretty print here. We can just call it directly after we set these values. We can just say, yeah, pretty print. So it will execute this thing even before it starts rendering. So here, actually, we can just put an empty, because it doesn't matter. it won't be used. It will use the value that we have set from this temp display, so it will pretty print it. I think that's all right. So it should show the number now at the right position. Maybe we can give it one less space, so 16. So we can use up to 16 digits, right? So it looks kind of neat. And now one thing, when we update this temp display at the end, we also need to call hey pretty print and set focus. And here also the same thing, like for the temp result, we are raising it. For the temp display, we are going to say, yeah, okay, this is now 0. And then we are going to pretty print. And in this case, we don't change the last key that was set, or maybe we can just, set the focus to 0 or equal. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. So 1, 2, 3, and then if I press C, it just goes to equal, but it didn't clear it out. Why? Okay, pretty print. Temp display. Yeah, of course, because I didn't use root here, so that's why. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and clean. Okay, now I can type in things and clean my result. Right, so let's keep on going. There's a little bit more which we want to be able to do, which is the operations, right? So if we have one of these operations, so what are our operations? Plus or equal, plus, minus, multiply, and divide, and finally equal. Okay, if it's one of these, now we also need some to do something with it. And here I'm probably gonna divide this again. So I matched on this because we probably want to do a few things after we finish the operations, but I'm gonna match again on each operation individually. And then we do whatever we need to do outside of those. So for plus, for minus, for multiply, for divide, and for equal. Each one will have a different outcome. So for plus, it needs to move it needs to store this temp display temp result. So it needs to store the temp result. I mean, each of them, maybe except for equal. I'm gonna pull equal maybe as a separate thing for now, because I'm not sure if this is the same case as the other operations. The other operations, I'm pretty sure they do the same thing. So even I'm not sure if we need to keep this like that. I think we can just do a generic thing for all these operations. Now, thinking about it, sorry, maybe you're not following, but the idea is we can just store the operation. So let's just store what is the operation. And yeah, let's start just with nothing. And then when you hit plus, you just say, yeah, the root operation equals, this equals the value. So we store that value to the operation. But there's one more thing we need to do. We need to copy the temporary display, which is the only thing we are updating so far, into the temporary result as a number. So that also needs to be done at this point. So root.temp result equals number of our temp display. If you want to be very clear, you can put also root here, just to be sure we know what we are doing. Okay, so this stored it there, and now we need to set temp display to 0 again and pretty print it, and set our focus to the value. Now, finally, the equal thing is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So when you have the equal one, it means that you need to apply the operation. Here is where we actually take the operation and do something with it. So let's just create here temporarily the operand equals the whatever is on the display, a number from that. And regarding the operation, if it's one of those, now we have an operation for each of them. So plus, minus, multiply, and divide by. Okay, so here in each case we're going to apply a different thing, which is for plus we have this operand and we have the temp result. So the temp result in this case is going to be temp result plus equal operand. I don't even probably need this. And for minus, it's going to be I think that one thing that usually is done is that we keep this operand at the root level. So I'm going to just add it here, like we can improve on that later. This is, I'm thinking on those options when you just do plus equal and then you press equal again and it adds again that same operand. So we could actually store this operand to the root, and we could start with the 0 there, I think. So we could have a temp operand, and then in this case when we hit equal, actually we would have to have an operand which is a null. It's no operand. There's different behaviors. I will for now just forget about it. Our calculator doesn't implement that feature. We can come back to this at another point. I'm just gonna add the other mathematical operations here, just so we can get through this and complete at least the very basic functions. So I'm just capturing whatever is the operand, which is what we have on the display. I apply this to whatever we have stored before we clicked one of those. And now we want to show the result. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say our temporary display is equal to our temporary result to text, pretty print, and set focus on equal. Yeah, that kind of should do already some mathematical operation. So let's see how our calculator gets with 4 plus 5 equals 9. Right, that's cool. So I think, and if I take this one and say divide by 4 equals, yeah, that's also fine. So I think that we are kind of, is it fine? I don't know. What did we just do? We did 9 divided by 4, right? Was that the calculation? And then it's 2.25. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's correct. So we can already do some of the stuff. The only thing we didn't do is we didn't add a dot there. So 8 point dot is not implemented. I think that we can dot just add it as a number, really. All it does, it just adds the thing here. So let's just add the dot or dot. So that should work fine. I hope. Let's see with what happens with the dot now. 5.5 that times 11 equals, that doesn't seem quite right, does it? No. 5.5 times 11. Or maybe I'm actually not reasoning correctly. Yes, that's correct. Like 5. Yeah, that's actually correct. So our calculator seems to be working now. It, like, whatever you type in here is just gonna add that number in there. We didn't handle the case where it just overflows. So maybe because we're using pretty print, I think it's just gonna handle it nicely. The problem is it doesn't, not that nicely, I mean, but it does handle it somehow. I mean, it just trims the value, and then if we use that, it will just use what we are seeing on the screen. But the main thing I wanted you to get to have an idea is how to create a very basic terminal UI application here. And there is some nice features on this simple example. And we could surely do it in many other different things, in other different ways. But I hope this already gives us a nice perspective on how to use the FatForm library, so to say, and together with it, how to like use some of the basics of FatScript. So I hope this is useful. We don't need this code here. We can quickly review everything. So now our calculator basically is importing all the standard libraries from FatScript and FatForm, all the thing. We create then a theme where we define the non-selected button, the selected button, and the display for our numbers. We reuse the themed button which was already created in the sample for the FatForm, which actually brought us a lot of trouble when we were trying to put them together. But then I came up with some way to solve it by just putting all the theme buttons into a box, which kind of resolved our problem and actually helped us to position them better. And then there was like a lot of work here on how to create these buttons. We could probably have created them in a somewhat more cleverer way, like doing some iteration over them, but I just manually created all of them. And then we created this pretty print function which basically gets the component for the display, which we call result. It then just uses a overlay for a blank space with 16 positions, and it aligns the text to the right. So it gets this temp display and it places whatever is typed at the right using 16 characters, and this also ensures that we always clean that line when we are printing. Then we have this temp result where we just keep the numbers. The temp display, which is what we show, we convert between them when we are doing the maths, and we have an operation which we store to match on that operation. And when we try to execute the equal operation, we just take our temp result. And I'm not sure what happens actually if we don't do any operations like 20 and just say equals, and then it actually just goes zero because there's no operation to execute. Yeah, that kind of is okay for this little sample. I'm not sure if it's the correct thing we would expect, but I'm pretty sure we could continue on this one and improve it a little bit to do those kind of things that you would expect from a calculator, which is like when you hit plus and equal and then you press equal again, it can remember that the last operand was actually the number that you had typed, and then it keeps adding, and it remembers the last operation and it keeps adding and adding again that same operand. Anyway, I think that this already gave an idea on how this works, I hope. And yeah, um, that's it for today. And we see ourselves next Monday, 8 p.m. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to get notified for the next session. And also, if you would like to ask anything, just put in the comments. If you would like to suggest any new subject, just, also add there to the comments, and I will read it and I will consider it, and I will try to bring for you the new topics on the next videos. So that's it for tonight, and I hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye and good coding.